getteth understanding. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and the reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee, but rebuke a wise man, and he will love thee. Give instruction to a wise man, he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. Pray with me if you would, and then we're going to jump in today. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be in your house and to be reminded of the truths of your glorious gospel. Lord, that you are good, that you redeem us, not because of what we've done, but because of your blood. Lord, that you're there for us, that there's 10,000 reasons we can bless your name. On and on we could go. Father, you've been so good to us, and even in your mercy, you've given us your word, and you've given us the freedom to be able to assemble together this morning, and I pray that we would not take this for granted. I pray that we would tune in and that we would cherish every moment we have to sit under your word and to have it instruct us and guide us and help us. So would you do that today? Lord, not because of my words and my lips, but by your Spirit and with your word, would you teach us and help us? We love you, and we ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Well, when it comes to listening well, one of the first things you have to know is that you can't listen to everything. Sure, James chapter number 1 will tell us that we should be slow to anger, slow to speak, and we also should be swift to hear, but you have to understand that some things are harmful to listen to. And Proverbs is wise enough and nuanced enough to tell you this. This is why we started with Proverbs 17:4, that the wicked doer gives heed or gives ear to false lips, and a liar gives ear to a naughty tongue. This is a negative thing. This is saying, do not listen to lies. Do not listen to wicked people. And it's saying that if you do this, you will tend to lie. You will tend to be wicked. And the question from this verse is kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg? Are they listening to lies because they're liars? Are they listening to wickedness because they're wicked? Or are they wicked because they listen to the wickedness? I don't know. Perhaps both. Perhaps it's saying that if you listen to lies and wickedness, it will make you more like them. Or perhaps it's saying that if you lie and if you're wicked, that you're going to want to find people who sync up with you and just tell you what you want to hear. But either way, what it's saying is don't listen to that. You don't want to listen to lies. You don't want to listen to deceit. You don't want to listen to things that are, it talks about a naughty tongue, things that are wicked. There's a measure of discernment when it comes to our listening and what we filter in and what we filter out and what we allow in the inputs that we have in our lives. Proverbs 29 tells us that a man that flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. What it's saying is that flattery can kill you. Don't listen to flattery. Someone who's always buttering you up, someone who's always telling you what you need to hear. I understand we need encouragement, we need admonition, we need people to give us words of affirmation at times. Sure, we do. But someone who will never love you enough to speak the truth to you, you need to be resistant of that. And what it's saying is that if you listen to flattery, it'll be like you're putting your foot in a bear trap, and this will be harmful for yourself because you don't have an accurate view of yourself. You'll be like the person trying to do your hair in a foggy mirror. You're not going to be able to see enough to make the corrections that you need, and this will be a disadvantage for you. Absalom was this way. Absalom was a man who he talked with the guys, he got enough wisdom and he got enough of a game plan to overthrow his father and to take the kingdom, and then he was smart enough to surround himself with a cabinet of counselors, right? Because in the multitude of counselors there's safety. So he had all these guys around him counseling and advising him. Absalom's problem was not that he didn't have enough input or even the right input, because he did have the right input, but he chose to listen to the wrong counsel. He chose to give his ear to that what was detrimental to his life, and his time on the throne was extremely short-lived because of that. So the point is this. Part of listening well is choosing the right inputs. Now the million-dollar question is, what are the right inputs? And I suppose that I could talk about a lot. I could talk about Christian music, I could talk about the Bible, and all those things would be fitting and good, and I could find biblical passages to teach those to you. But Proverbs says there is one input above all else, what it mentions with the most frequency, the input that you need, that you should tune your ears to help you live a life of righteousness and wisdom, is this: tune into correction and reproof, especially when it comes from someone who knows you well and is righteous. What it says is you need to tune into things that you're not going to want to tune into. Reproof and correction and feedback people course correcting you and saying, hey, don't do it this way, do it that way, if there's someone who knows you well, and there's someone who, especially if they live a life of righteousness, pay attention to that. Now here's what Proverbs 15 says, correction's grievous unto him that forsakes the way, and he that hateth reproof, so they don't tune in, they don't listen, that person shall die. Now that sounds ominous, right? You don't want to be that person. It says in Proverbs 13 that poverty and shame will be to the one that refuses instruction, who does not tune in and resists it, but to the one that regards reproof, he shall be honored. Regard means to keep it, to take heed of it, to respect it. The one who will respect this and tune in and take it in, that actually will be to their honor. Proverbs 15 says, the ear that heareth reproof of life, that person abides among the wise. But he that refuses instruction despises his own soul. He that heareth reproof getteth understanding. What's it saying? You want to be wise? You want to have understanding? Then you need to hear reproof. Now, why would Proverbs have to remind us over and over and over and over again that you don't need to listen to wickedness, that you don't need flattery, that you need people to step on your toes. You need people to reprove you. You need people to chastise you, to correct you, to give you feedback that you don't want to hear. Why would it tell us that over and over? And this is just a sampling. I could give you a lot more verses. It tells you that over and over because you want to tune into the flattery. You want to disregard it, and you don't want to hear the reproof, naturally. It's like Oreos and vegetables. The flattery is like an Oreo that you will take in, but it will not do you good in the long run. And the reproof and the correction is like a vegetable that it may be tough to swallow down sometimes, but it will be healthy for you. And there are a lot of people that their listening diet is the equivalent of an Edo diet. I don't know if you've ever heard of an Edo diet. It's similar to a keto diet, but the Edo diet is where you eat Doritos and burritos and Fritos and Cheetos all day long, okay? You don't want that. The equivalent of the Edo diet for your listening is, I'm just going to listen to flattery. I'm not going to welcome counselors in my life. I'm just going to believe everything I say about myself and what I think is true. I'm going to punt as far away from me as I can, reproof and correction, and you coming after me and speaking the truth in love. I do not want this. I only want to listen to people that align with me. That is so, so, so unhealthy for you. And the Word of God goes out of its way over and over and over again. It's just replete with this instruction that you need to listen to reproof and correction, especially when it comes from people who know you well and are righteous people. You want to pay attention to it. So, easy peasy, right? Sermon's over, okay, don't listen to the flattery or the wickedness or the lies, and, just absorb the correction that's good for me. Don't push it away. If someone speaks the truth in love, absorb it. Great. Well, it's not that simple. And the thing is, the Word of God knows it's not that simple. Solomon never says in Proverbs, breathe, because it's natural. It comes to us. But he has to tell you over and over again, value this. Take the correction. Welcome the feedback. Don't stiff-arm it. Why? Because he knew it wasn't a simple task. He knew it wasn't easy. So the question now is, how do we do it? How do we listen well to reproof and correction and feedback and people stepping on our toes? How do we listen well to that? And I want to give you a kind of a 5-step framework to help you through this, okay? So here we go. Number 1, recognize the hurt. This is an important place to start. You have to be reminded to welcome this into your life over and over because it is rarely a pleasant experience. When someone reproves you or chastises you, you generally don't like it. People don't say to each other if they're friends, hey, you want to get together Friday night, maybe, have dinner and do some course correcting with each other? Like, no one ever does that. It's not a fun activity. It's not board games, right? It's not enjoyable. The problem with this is that we're oftentimes scared of it. If someone wants to even offer it to us, that we're hesitant to this, right? So if I came to you after the service and said, hey, we just preached a message on being receptive and taking some feedback, and I pulled you aside and said, hey, can I give you some feedback? You probably would have alarm bells that go off. You'd be on red alert. You would naturally be on edge. If someone just said, hey, I need to speak the truth in love, I need to shoot straight with you, you probably wouldn't like it too much. But if I said, hey, can I give you some chocolate? You'd be great, right? Can I give you feedback? Can I give you chocolate? The only difference is one word, chocolate or feedback. We like chocolate, we don't like feedback. So we get on edge about it. It's just what we do. Because we understand that this is painful for us and it's rarely a pleasant experience. Why is that? There's probably a lot of reasons why, but one of the reasons why is this oftentimes goes against kind of who we think we are, or identity. Our identity is really the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. And when someone comes along and says, hey, I want to point something out, and that's contrary to the narrative that we've been spinning about ourselves, that can really tinker with us. That I thought I was the hardest worker I know, and you're calling me lazy bones. Like, this is more than just I need to do better at work. Now I'm trying to assess who I am as a person, and it can really mess with our identity. And we all, because of this, suffer from exaggerated hearing, where someone will say one thing, but we hear over and above what they say. So you tell me if this is at all true for you. If someone says, maybe your spouse says to you, hey, I think it'd be good for you to make the game this weekend with the kids. We normally don't hear that. We normally hear, you're never around. You're not engaged enough. What's your problem? If someone says to us, hey, you shouldn't have said that, what we hear is, you never say anything right, you idiot. When someone says to us, hey, I have a concern, we hear, everybody has a concern. Not just you, everybody has one. If you're in a staff meeting, maybe at work, I don't love that idea. What we hear oftentimes is, you never have a good idea. You're a dumb box of rocks. And this is what we do. We get feedback, and our propensity is to exaggerate it and to expand it and to take it further, because it begins to attack who we say we are, who we think we are, and it becomes really messy. This is something that if you know, and I'll give you a couple verses in a minute to prove exactly what I'm saying. I'm not making it up. This is something, though, that you have to know up front. And if you can know up front that it's not pleasant, that it's grievous, that it's hard, then you can at least brace for it and know it going into it, okay? When I grew up at a summer camp all summer long. My dad directed the camp, and this was from like maybe second or third grade till I got out of high school. We spent the majority of our summer living at the summer camp. And there were a number of things. The church started it, and it grew, and there were more cabins and more programs and more weeks and more activities and stuff as time went on. And when the camp was started, we had nothing for swimming. There were some dirty ponds and stuff like that, but you didn't want to swim in those. So we just put like a giant visqueen tarp on a big piece of like a hill or something, and put soap and water on it, and we all slid down it and just had fun, But as time went on, we got more money and assets and stuff, and the camp developed, and we made what we called the swimming hole. It's basically a small lake or like a pond, but we would chlorinate it and make sure it was clean, and there was a shallow end and a deep end and a fence to divide them, and there were slides and zip lines and climbing wall, and tons of fun. But part of the swimming hole was in the deep end. There was the blob. The blob is like that 30-foot air pillow that one person jumps on, and then they crawl to the end and sit there, and then a larger person jumps on the other end, and they go down, and then poof, they pop up. You know what I'm talking about? You ever seen this? If not, Google the blob, and you'll see some cool stuff. But generally, someone's going to jump, and it's going to pop you 20 feet in the air, and it's a fun ride. We would have on Tuesday, hey, welcome to the swimming hole. Here's a swim test. Let's make sure you can swim before we throw you in the deep end, those sorts of things. But there was a time of instruction for the blob that went like this. This looks fun. It will be fun if you brace for impact. It will not be fun if you sit there casually and you're not tense. It will whip you in half and break your back if you treat this with indifference. So, get on the blob, sit there, tuck your knees in, put your hand over your knees, because your knees are probably going to punch you in the face. So you resist that, make sure you don't break your nose, tense up. Then when you're in the air, you can kind of let go, not be because if you're just kind of sitting there, que sera, sera, it's going to be a wild ride, and you don't want it. I've seen multiple people literally be ambulanced away from their time on the blob because they missed the instruction or they didn't pay attention to it. But the point of the blob instruction was simply this: brace for impact. This will be good for you and fun for you, and you will have a great time if you are prepared up front and you're sitting there like a little piece of popcorn tensed up. Then it'll be fine. Receiving correction and reproof and instruction is similar to that. If you know up front that I have to brace for impact, and this isn't going to be a lot of fun for me, this is something that I may want to resist, and I'm going to have to kind of ready myself for this, then you will do a lot better just knowing that this hurts. But you also have to know that it's not just hurt, that it helps. So remember the help. And this is the mixed dynamic of correction that you see in the Bible. Yes, it hurts, but it also helps. It's both. Proverbs 6 says, the commandment is a lamp, the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Meaning, reproofs and instruction, they will help put you on the right path that is life-giving. It'll put you on a healthy way. It'll put you on a good way. Now, raise of hands. Who would like to walk down the path of life that is life-giving, healthy, and good? Anyone with me? All right. What do you need for your journey? Part of what you need is reproof. Part of what you need is correction. Part of what you need is somebody to come along and speak the truth in love and step on your toes and tell you something you really don't want to hear. That's the way that it goes. This is what Hebrews 12 says, and I think that Hebrews 12 does the best job in all the Bible of merging these two together and helping us see the picture. And here's what it says in verse number 10. Talking about our earthly parents, they, for a few days, chastened us after their own pleasure. So they corrected us, and this is not a good thing, but parents, aren't we guilty of this sometimes? We correct the children for our good or for our pleasure because it'll give maybe us more rest, or perhaps we're more embarrassed, and so we want to correct them so that we're not embarrassed or they don't think ill of us. And it says, earthly parents do this, but God, He chastens us, He corrects us for our profit, that we might be partakers of His holiness. That's 2 thumbs up. But here's what it says. No chastening for the present seems to be joyous, but how does it seem? Grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Here's what it's saying. Ouch. This hurts. That did not seem joyous. That was grievous. That was not pleasant. But thank you, that helped. That was for our profit. What did it say? It made us holy. It was profitable. It produces a peaceable fruit of righteousness. You see the combination? It hurts, but it helps. Here at the church and kind of our staff culture, we have a little saying called ouch, that helps, which tries to crystallize this idea that sometimes we're going to shoot straight with each other, and it's ouch, that helps moments. This hurt, but it also helped me, so thank you for doing me the favor. You can mark this in your notes. I won't spend a lot of time there, but Psalm 141, verse number 5. The psalmist talks about a righteous man reproving him. And here's what he says. He says 2 things. Number 1, it felt like he punched me. The word he uses is smite. It feels like I'm getting punched in the gut when a righteous person reproves me. But, and here's the word he uses, it's, quote, a kindness and an excellent oil on my head. The psalmist was wise enough to know when a righteous person corrects me, that's going to hurt me, but it's also going to help me. It's going to be kind that they did it. It's going to be an excellent oil for my head. And the psalmist says, so bring it on. I welcome this. I want this. I can say thank you for doing me the kindness of telling me the truth. You know, it's not just the scriptures that paint this picture. I was thinking this week as I was preparing about an old Bing Crosby song. And I don't know many non-holiday Bing Crosby songs, but I know this one because my dad would sing it to us anytime we didn't want to go to school. It probably would outdate many in the room. 1944 is when it came out, but tell me if it rings a bell. Would you like to swing on a star, or carry moonbeams home in a jar, or be better off than you are, or would you rather be a mule? Why does he ask, would you rather be a mule? Well, he goes on to say, a mule's an animal with long, funny ears, and he kicks up at anything he hears. His back is brawny and his brain is weak. He's just plain stupid with a stubborn streak. And by the way, if you hate to go to school, you might grow up to be a mule. Now, what is Bing singing? Bing is singing the truth of the scriptures in that song in a very creative way. He's saying, you want to swing from stars? You want to catch moonbeams? You want to be better off than you are today? Don't kick at what you're told. Don't be stubborn. Don't be non-teachable. Go, receive the instruction. He's singing what Proverbs says. That if you want life to go well and you want to improve, you can't act like a mule. You can't be resistant to everything that you're told. So this leads us to number 3, you have to resist the urge. Because there is in us, it hurts, but it helps. I want it, but I don't. And generally what will win is the urge to resist the feedback and resist the instruction. Our default reaction to feedback is to push back and to talk back. Our default reaction when someone tells us what we don't want to hear but need to hear is defensiveness. And studies have shown over and over and over again that when someone, it doesn't matter if it's in a marital context or if it's in a work context or even if it's in a classroom context, and especially the older you are, the more prone you are to this. So if you are in the back half of your life, pay special attention to this. Because when you're 5, you get reproved and you get corrected all over the place. But the older you get, the longer you're at the company, the more that you begin to think, what do I have to learn? I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me what to do. You begin to feel this over and over and over again, and you are going to resist the urge, or you need to resist the urge. Because if you don't, what you'll do, the study shows that you're wrong spot. Wrong spot is when someone tells you something you need to hear, and you try to identify the little piece of it that's not true, that's wrong, and then you dismiss the whole thing. So someone comes to you out of love, and they tell you, hey, you've been late several meetings in a row. I think we need to work on our punctuality. And you automatically begin to think, well, there was this one time last year, 12 months ago, that you were late to a meeting, so I don't have to listen to you. You weren't punctual on time, right? We find this little piece of it that we can try to justify or excuse it away, so then we dismiss the whole thing. Your spouse comes to you, hey, here's an issue, or I think that we could do better here, I think we could work on this. And naturally, are we receptive to that or defensive to that? You tell me. Naturally, well, no, that's not true. Hey, hon, I don't know that we need to spend $3,000 a month on clothing. I think that we could scale that back a little bit. It wasn't $3,000, it was $2,987.32, okay? It wasn't $3,000. You're missing the point. You're wrong spotting and saying, oh, that little piece of information wasn't entirely accurate, and you're trying to dismiss the whole thing and not receive the feedback. Don't do that. Don't do that. Resist the urge to be defensive. We all have in us, when people come to us, and especially if they're not very tactful and they don't handle it gingerly, which not everyone can do that all the time, but they come to us and they present us with something that we need to hear, and they try to reprove us. This little lawyer raises up in us and begins to defend, and the problem with that is if you're trying to prove yourself, you will never improve yourself. You have to stop trying to prove. You have to stop wrong spotting. You have to stop and lay down and say, you know what? I actually want to be receptive to this. This is why Proverbs 9 says, reprove not a scorner. What? Time out. Reprove not a scorner. You just said all over the place, God, that reproof and instruction were the way of life, and this is profitable for us, and hip, hip, hooray, it's an excellent oil and kindness, and now you're telling me not to do it? What's up with that? Well, lest he hate thee. A scorner won't take it. It won't be profitable for them. They won't receive it. But rebuke a wise man, and he'll love thee. Rebuke a wise man, and he'll love thee. Is he a glutton for punishment? He have a martyr complex? What's his deal? No, he understands, the wise man understands this is good, and he'll take it, and he'll say, thank you. Thank you for doing me the kindness to point that out to me. Where a scorner will resist, and it will cause so much friction that it actually isn't profitable, it's harmful in the long run. So what do we do with that? Well, you receive the correction. You resist the urge to be defensive, and you need to receive the correction. And here, forgive a football analogy, because I know not everyone loves sports, but when reproof and correction come your way, especially from those that are closest to you, they know you, they love you, and they live a life of righteousness. So your siblings, your parents, your perhaps boss, your spouse, your pastor, when they come to you to confront you with something and to lay it down, you will either A, be a punter, or B, a wide receiver. That's how it works. I will take this reproof and I will punt that away from the end zone of my life as far as I can, or I will be wide open and say, bring it in, let me have it, let me cherish it, let me protect this, I want this. Those are the two options. And the scriptures say you don't want to be a punter, you want to be a wide receiver. You want to receive this from other people, be willing. And you can admit that it hurts. You can tell them, honestly, this has not been a great day, and this is the last thing that I want to hear today. I don't know that I'm emotionally equipped enough to get this right now, but thank you for being willing to tell me the truth, because I do want to be better, and I appreciate it. You can do that. Someone comes to you and they want to correct you. You know what? I have to admit, my gut reaction is to defend myself. I'm going to try to resist that, but I want you to know I can get better, and I want to get better. I appreciate you giving me the feedback. And here's what you have to know when it comes to receiving correction. 2 big things. Number 1, you may have already cut yourself off from feedback and correction, and you may need to undo that. There may be people in your life that while they may not have said you're a scorner, but fundamentally that's what they think of you. They think, when I correct you, you hate me. When I correct you, you don't take it, you don't receive it well, you don't welcome it, you resist it, and you fight with me, and you're utterly defensive. And what's going to happen is they're going to understand they are not receiving it, they are not welcoming it, and they're hating me for it, and this is not good. And they are going to fall back to not giving you what you need to hear. So, every teenager in the room, if you're a teenager, look here. There is a chance that you have already cut yourself off from correction you need from your parents because you resist, pout, fight. I'm going to give you the silent treatment. And what you're doing is you are setting yourself up for disaster. You're leaving your parents with the option of fight with you and make my kid hate me because I'm trying to love them, I'm trying to tell them the truth, or stop telling them the truth and have calmer waters, but then you don't get what you need to hear. So don't be defensive. Spouses, there are many spouses that you cut yourself off from life-giving advice and help from your spouse. I know you want your spouse to love you the most. I get it. But they live with you the most. They're around you the most. In some ways, they are the most impressed with you, and in some ways, they are the least impressed with you, as they should be. Right? It doesn't take very long for them to realize, you know what, there's some issues here. And while I understand spouses, don't be a nag and don't point out every little thing incessantly all of the time, but it is so helpful to have someone who's in the boat with you, who's wanting to pull in the same direction as you, who's wanting to help you, that will give you feedback. And if you have been resistant and you have scorned and you have fought it, your boss or your employees, if you have been utterly unapproachable, your employees to the boss, they won't give you what you need, and you will kill yourself. You'll kill yourself. So don't be that person. And if you have been that person, you may need to start by going to those that are closest to you in your life and admitting that you have been that person and telling them, my bad. I'm sorry. I don't want to be that person. I tend to be defensive and breathe fire at you when you come. I do. I tend to. But I'm telling you, I'm going to try not to. And I want to welcome it. I want you to pour it into my life. I want to receive it from you. Even if you haven't cut yourself off from it, it is a good idea. Some of you would be a great idea this week, all of you actually, myself included, to take 5, 6 different people in your life that know you well and live lives of righteousness, and to just shoot them a text or a call or an email and say, hey, I hope you know this, but I want to let you know I welcome your feedback in my life, and if there's something that's off, I would want to know. I would find it kind if you did that for me. Let me know. I'm wide open anytime. Anytime you see something, let me know. It's a very good spot to be. So number 1, if you've already cut yourself off, you may have to undo some of that. Number 2, the great thing about reproof and feedback and getting course correction is you don't got to wait around for it. You don't have to sit there and just say, well, I hope someone comes and tells me something I need to work on eventually. No one said anything in 6 months. First of all, if no one said something in 6 months, either you have no good friends or people are completely scared to tell you, right? And if they are fearful to tell you something that's corrective, it's probably because they felt your wrath before. So there's a problem there if you haven't had anything in 6 months. But you don't have to wait for it. You can be proactive. You can actually go to your boss and say, hey, I know the annual evaluation isn't for like another 5 months, but is there anything I'm doing today that you'd like to, correct me on? Is there any feedback you can give me? Teenagers, you can go to your parents. You can ask them today, hey, what do you see in my life? Where do you see I'm going wrong? Is there something in my friendships? Is there something in my attitude? Is there something that I want? Husband and wife, it would be a great idea. You can't do this every day, I don't think, but if you went to your spouse once every 2 weeks and just said, hey, is there a way I can be a better husband? I can't take 10 right now. I got a lot on my plate, but I could take one. Is there one way that you could point out that could be a better husband, that could be a better wife to you? And you know what I found? If I seek it, I'm far more prone to listen to it than just someone coming at me, out of nowhere. I want to take both, but you should be the one to initiate this and to welcome it in your life. I was challenged to do this by another leader about, maybe 18 months ago. I was challenged to do a reverse evaluation with our staff here at the church and at the school. And between the school and the church, there's more than 30 of us total. So last staff orientation, I gave them this piece of paper, and I tried to tell them up front, look, I want brutal honesty. I will not be mad at you. I will not, give you a terrible, task because you shot straight with me. Like, I won't use you as a negative sermon illustration. Just shoot me straight. And here are a few questions I want you to take, 15 minutes and fill them out. And they did. Everyone did. And not everyone answered every question, but I asked them questions like, I wrote a few of them down here. What have I said or done that's hindered our personal or professional relationship? What are 3 things you wish I would continue to do or stop doing? What's it like to be on the other side of me? What's my blind spot? What's my single most important behavioral quality that detracts from the strength of our team? Now, there were a few more than that. I'll be completely honest. It was not fun. It was rather scary, actually, to say, hey, here's 30 people who, work with me and see me on a day-to-day basis and answer these questions for me. But it was wildly profitable. Now, did everything I get, was it all equally profitable? No. Did everything I get, was I able to course correct all of it, and now I'm just, a perfect model of all of it, and I still have nothing to work on? Absolutely not. There's still things that I heard from those that I'm like, it's like a continual process that I'm still working on. But it was highly valuable for me as a leader to go to others and to say, hey, could you give me some feedback? Could you pour this into my life? I want this for my life. And the thing is, with correction and what Proverbs is saying will give you a wise life that will put you on the right path, you don't have to wait for it. You can be someone that says, give me the ball. I know there won't be many. Anyone play wide receiver in college football, high school football? You actually played wide receiver? Let me see your hands if you did. All right, there's a couple of you out here, okay? Then my wide receivers will know. Wide receivers want the ball. If you're playing football, wide receivers, they're not just like going down the field, just, walking around, if I get the ball, so no. They want it, they crave it, they are after it, right? If you want to receive this, if you want it in your life, you may have to be the person who fights for it, who goes about and says, would you give it to me? I want it for me. I want to receive it. Lastly, remind yourself of the gospel. This is important to note. There's a story in the New Testament of Jesus telling his disciples that he's about to go to Jerusalem. He's about to be taken. He's about to be crucified. And Peter comes to Jesus and kind of takes him to the side and says, Jesus, no, don't say that. That's not true. It's not going to happen. And Jesus reproves Peter. And he says, quote, "Get thee behind me, Satan." All right, let's start there. That's probably a punch to the gut. Hey, you satanic individual. That's what he says. You don't savor, thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things of men. Here's what Jesus says to Peter. You talk about some feedback. Peter, you are satanic. You do not value spiritual things. All you value is temporal, earthly things. Get your act together, bud. Shut up. That's what he says. I don't know if you've ever had Jesus tell you that or not, but it would feel to me like, would that ruin me? Like, would I just melt into a puddle and my life would be over if Jesus called me satanic or unspiritual and all you do is savor the things of men? And Peter took it. He handled it well. We know Peter went on to be one of the leaders of the church, obviously, and massively used of Jesus. How? I don't know if this was the exact reason for Peter, but I'm certain that it should be a reason for us. We should have, as Christians, a gospel identity that is able to help us give and receive feedback in a way that our non-Christian counterparts cannot. I would argue that Christians should be the best, like world class, at receiving feedback well, at getting correction well. Why? Well, on one hand, the gospel teaches us that we're a mess, right? That we are a sinner, that we are wicked, that we are undone, that we cannot save ourselves, that even the good things we do actually are pretty trashy because our motives get all mixed in there and we just can't seem to get it right. Like the gospel teaches us that. And to be a Christian, you have to walk through the low door of humility and say, Jesus, I am a sinner and I am undone and I am a mess. Do for me what I cannot do for myself. Save me. That's how Christianity starts, okay? And if we can in that moment admit that we do not have it together and we cannot do it ourselves, we should continue in that same mindset that I need Jesus. I'm not going to be able to figure this out or will myself or do the Christian life all on my own, which should constantly place us as Christians with the gospel identity. It should place us in a position of humility and not pride, constantly. We should be the ones that when someone comes to us and says, here's a problem, we should be the first to not be ultra defensive, but say, you know what? You're right, my life is not in order. But instead, don't we get here as Christians even? Like somehow we're all put together, we're all buttoned up, and everything's in order, we're all squeaky clean, and there's no issues. So when someone comes to us, then we have to be defensive about it and act like everything is good and everything's honky-dory. It's weird. It's weird. Either amazing grace that saved a wretch like me, or I'm all put together and I got it all figured out. Pick one. And the gospel says you're a wretch, okay? I'll tell you which one to pick, actually. I'll take the ball out of your court and say, pick that one. So we should be these non-defensive people that understand we don't have it all figured out, that we need Jesus every single day. Our heart is in need of gospel repair. But on the other hand, we're told that when we come to Jesus that he takes that identity away from us and he says you're not just wretch and sinner and be down on yourself, the end, but now you are my child. I adopt you into my family. You're a dear child. I love you. I've chosen you. I'm for you. I see you to the bottom, yes, and you're a mess, but I love you to the top. And that should give us a confidence and a stability that people who don't know Jesus don't have. So we should be these people that are telling ourselves this story about ourselves over and over and over again. That I'm a mess and I have issues, yes, but God is working on me and God has me and he's not going to let go of me. And he who began a good work in me will perform it and he will work it out until the day of Jesus Christ. And God is going to keep changing me for the better until I'm made into the image of Jesus. So when someone comes, if that's what you're telling yourself about yourself, which is the gospel identity, and someone comes and says, hey, I think you could change this for the better, we should be the first people in the world to say, yeah, that's like my Christian walk. I'm constantly needing to change things for the better and be made into the image of Jesus. So I get that that we have this urge to resist or be defensive or wrong spot, but if there is anybody in the world that should say, hey, Solomon, God, I see your advice. I see that I need to listen well to reproof and instruction and chastisement from those that love you and know you and have lives of righteousness. I need to receive that well. If anyone should be able to do that, it should be the Christian people. It should be the people of God. It should be the church of God. And what I hope as a pastor, I have lots of hopes. I have lots of prayers. But one of the many, is that we would be people that would be able to do this with each other. That we would be able to confess our faults one to another, pray for one another, provoke one another to love and good works, challenge each other, encourage each other. That we'd be able to speak into each other's lives. And I know this sounds self-serving, but even as the body, as the flock, that from the pastors that are here at the church, that I would welcome that I would want that. I want the accountability. I want the guidance. That's a healthy thing. And then that we'd be able to do it with the Lord. Not just with each other, but with him. What did the psalmist pray? I'm done after this. Search me, O God. Try my heart. See if there be any wicked way in me. Lead me into the ways of everlasting. I'm paraphrasing. What is that? God, I want your feedback. God, give me the reproof. Give me the correction. Is my heart not right? Is my heart deceiving me? Am I believing wrong stories? Have I listened to liars? Am I on the wrong path? God, please, I'm telling you, search me. I want to know. I want to know. Give it to me. Give me feedback, Lord. Correct me. I welcome it. This should be our heart. And if this can be your heart, you will have a massive advantage, not just of living a profitable Christian life, but of living a life that is healthy, life-giving. Without this, it's a path of destruction, Proverbs says. So welcome it. Father, we love you, and we stop in this moment to thank you for the truth.